Hi folks, this is Paul Padda coming to you live on June 19th from the Red Chimp Studios here in Las Vegas on a beautiful day in Las Vegas. Welcome to the Paul Padda Podcast. I'm really honored and pleased to have someone that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I got to know him as a person, and then I saw living and the work that he does, and this is just a real treat today to have Dr. Zachary Robbins on our podcast. Welcome, Dr. Robbins.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here.
Well, listen, I know you obviously outside of this podcast. We've worked together on some things. And I remember when I first met you, how impressed I was, not just because of your background in education, but then actually using your degrees and knowledge and implementing it and seeing real world examples of what you've done in terms of just transforming Cheyenne High School. Before we get into what you do here in Las Vegas, I just want to ask you a little bit, because our viewers are often interested in knowing more about our guests. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, how long you've lived in Las Vegas, what brought you here, and what do you love about Vegas?
So I came to Vegas in 2007 and grew up in Hampton, Virginia. So Southern guy, grew up in Hampton, Virginia, left Hampton, Virginia, went to Howard University in Washington, D.C.
Now Hampton, isn't that a Navy town?
Navy, we built ships.
Right.
We build a lot of ships in the Newport News shipyard.
Right.
We have a lot of military installations. We have the Norfolk Naval Base there. Lots of beautiful, beautiful just ocean all around in Hampton, Virginia. Definitely what you would call a military town.
Sure.
Langley Air Force Base, Fort Eustis. Just a great place just to grow up. Yeah. Left there, went to Washington, D.C. At Howard University. Then I lived there for a while, worked in D.C. public schools. While in college, worked at the United States Department of Justice as a paralegal. Left there, went to Boston, worked in Boston public schools, got my PhD from Boston College, froze to death while I was there, and then got tired of freezing, got tired of never being able to find a parking place. Right. And then moved here to Las Vegas, Nevada, and absolutely love being here.
Fantastic. Wow, so you're like a bit of a rolling stone, huh? Hampton to DC to Boston to Las Vegas. Those are all really different places.
Yes.
I'm sure you would agree.
Yes.
DC is not Las Vegas.
Not at all.
Because I moved here from Washington, D.C., and it's we used to have a joke in D.C. that Washington was like Hollywood for the ugly people, in the sense that politicians are like celebrities there. You see a congressman from somewhere, and people are like, "Oh my God, there's a congressman from Missouri." Anywhere else, no one would care. But only in Washington, D.C. does the Undersecretary of Transportation qualify as a celebrity. Right. But it's a great town for nerdy people, right? Because there's all these think tanks, and whereas people on the weekends in other towns, they go do whatever, go to a bar or something. In D.C., people go to a think tank discussion on various topics, like how are we going to transform education, or whatever your political persuasion is. That's what's really cool about D.C., I've always found.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then Boston, of course, what a seat of education with all these great universities like, Boston University, Boston College, Harvard, right, MIT. Amazing.
Absolutely. And I remember being in Boston and working with the Office of High School Renewal in Boston, because when I worked in Boston, I worked in the area where most of the homicides in the city took place, in the walk zone of my school. And we spent so much time just trying to figure out, how are we going to ensure that every student got their free and appropriate public education in the neighborhood, and how we were going to ensure that every single kid was going to be safe, and then how were we going to make sure that every single student graduated with what they needed to take advantage of and live the American dream.
Sure. So undergrad at Howard, and then PhD at Boston University.
At Boston College.
Boston College. Okay. Doug Flutie's school.
Yes. Flutie Flakes. I actually bought a box just because I'm thinking, hey, I went to Boston College. I mean, hey, it's just what you do.
Well, that's a really impressive background. And then, so what drew you, obviously, to Vegas? It's a different type of town than Boston, clearly. Was it the employment opportunities here?
So definitely, in part, definitely the employment opportunities. When I was in Boston, my school at the time was the 4th most improved school in the state of Massachusetts when I had decided to leave. Wow. And I remember sitting down with my dissertation chair, Dr. Janet Helms at Boston College, and we had this conversation. And she said, Zach, you can love your school, but your school won't love you back. So you need more than just work.
Yeah.
And that started me thinking, you know, where in the country will I be happy? Because I love what I do.
Sure.
I get deeply involved with my community wherever I am.
Yeah.
And I knew that I would need both, a community that I can love and a place in terms of work that I can love. So I started looking all around the country. And I knew I didn't want to be cold anymore.
Yeah.
So I started looking, and then I took a trip to Vegas with my family. And I remember it was the first time I had ever been on the West Coast, because I grew up back east.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out here, and I had grown up, I grew up around water, and being in DC, there was nothing but sidewalk.
Right.
So when I came to Vegas, it was the first time I'd seen open air and mountains, and it wasn't cold in the winter, and there were places to park, and it's just
different.
It was beautiful
compared to the East Coast.
It was absolutely beautiful. And then it was my first time in a casino.
Yeah.
I had never been in a casino before.
Right.
And I remember being in a casino for the first time, and I hit the button, and I won all this money. And I said, it must be like this every weekend.
Every day.
And I quickly found out that's not the case.
You've since learned that they don't build these casinos by giving away money.
I quickly learned that. And it was my first time in a buffet. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Right.
And I just felt, then I started meeting people.
Yeah.
Like I went to the grocery stores and started talking to people. And then I started meeting the students who worked in the grocery stores, and they started talking about the schools.
So I think you've kind of answered my next question, but I want to ask it anyways. What is the thing about Vegas that you love the most?
You know, I really love the communities and the people, because while Vegas is very, very spread out, communities very much remind me of communities in Boston and New York. They're very insular.
Right.
So when you get plugged into a community, it has this small town feel in such a big place.
Right.
So you can go to your neighborhood grocery store and people will talk about neighborhood happenings.
Yeah.
And I like the way that feels. You can, like, in my school, we talk about things that are germane to not just the city at large, but we talk about what's germane to the neighborhood.
Right.
So you still have, even though we're in this sprawling space of a county, you still have this, it still has this small town kind of appeal.
Yeah.
And you're working for the interest of the people in the neighborhood and working for the best interest of the students and their parents and their grandparents and the folks in the neighborhood who may not even have kids in schools. And you're doing what's in the neighborhood's best interest and always working to make sure that everyone feels good about what's happening in their neighborhood school.
So a sense of community. You know, I actually encountered that myself, and that was one of the things that really drew me to Vegas. Well, when I first came here, I thought, well, I'll spend a year and I'll see, maybe I want to move to California. That's kind of where I really thought I wanted to be. But there's something magical that happens here. This is such a interesting town. It's got a big name. You can go to Africa, India, China, Mongolia, France, some small town in Germany, anywhere in the world. And if you say Las Vegas, people, they know what that means.
Instantly.
But yet this is a small town in its essence, and it's a very welcoming town. It's really a town made up of people from all over the country who come here.
Right.
And the way this town was founded, it was built by dreamers and people who kind of thought like they could do the impossible. And they built this city in the desert. And I feel like that sort of ethos carries over to the character now, because there's towns like New York or LA that are tough to break into. As a lawyer, if I just wanted to hang out a shingle in some of those cities, there would be so many barriers to entry. Whereas in Las Vegas, you know, people are just welcoming and they're open. If you're willing to work hard, you can do it here.
Right.
And that's what I really like about Vegas. I know you share that. And you have so much involvement in the community, and I'm going to get to that. But why don't you just tell our viewers a little bit about what you do right now, and I'll describe that a little bit.
So right now, I'm the principal at Cheyenne High School. I've been there for 5 years, and it is the best job in the universe. There's nothing more beautiful than working with the people's children, learning what the students' dreams are, and giving them the tools and the things they need so they can go out and pursue those dreams.
Right.
So
You're literally molding lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And giving students what they need to go out and pursue those dreams and make their lot in life.
Yeah.
So, and whether that is if they want to go and go into the military, go to trade school, or go to college, whatever it is, just giving them what they need. And to talk to parents who want nothing more but to make sure that their students have a better life than they had.
Sure.
And to make sure that, and even parents, if parents will walk through the door and say, you know, Dr. Robbins, I never got a chance to finish school, can you help me?
Yeah.
And then you get on the phone and say, hey, I have a parent who wants to finish their high school diploma.
Yeah.
Can we plug them in? I have a night school program in my school right now. I have parents right now who are getting their high school diplomas alongside students who may have dropped out of school.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And that's the way it's supposed to be.
That's right. You know, one thing that really struck me when I came out to see you, and I thought about it later, and I don't know why it struck me. It's obvious it should be that way, but I was so blown away by the fact that, you know, you are, as a principal of a school, essentially like the mayor of a small town, the CEO of a corporation, and a sociologist, psychologist. And I say that because, like, I don't think the average person understands. You, as a principal, you have to be competent in terms of a budget, managing a budget, dealing with all the financial issues that go on with the school. And there's a lot of money. This is millions of dollars. So as a principal, you're in charge of that. As a principal, you're also in charge of dealing with all of the issues that the student body has. You know, we tend to think as members of the general public that when the doors open and close at a school, that's it. This is just a community and education is going on. But all the problems from the outside world come inside to that school, right? You got violence issues, you have teen pregnancy issues, you have kids who are dealing with hardships at home, but yet coming to school to learn, and all the burdens that they have to carry, and the psychological and emotional effects that has on your student body. So I was really blown away by that fact and that aspect of what you deal with on a regular basis. That's amazing. Tell me, just how do you deal with it? I mean, that's incredible.
And thank you so much, because you can't turn a blind eye to it. I mean, picture this: student comes in, they come to school, and they don't have a place to go afterwards. They literally have no home.
Yeah.
You can't.
You have kids in your school who are homeless.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And not just 5 or 10 or 20.
Yeah.
And they literally have nowhere to go afterwards, so you can't just not attend to that.
Right.
We may have students who have their own children, and they're trying to figure out, how am I going to make sure that not only my child has food and clothes, but I have food and clothes on my back too, because for whatever reason, my family has chosen to put me out of the house.
Yeah.
You have to deal with that.
Right.
What about the family who maybe they've left California because they are escaping from some sort of a hardship, whether it be a financial hardship, a domestic abuse situation, or whatever. And they come to Cheyenne and they say, you know, I don't want you to put my child's picture on anything because I don't want my ex-husband or my boyfriend or whatever to know that this is where I am.
Yeah.
I have to attend to that.
Yeah.
So when you have these sorts of things that land on your lap, because this is my thing that I have to attend to, because
Sure.
if the goal is to make sure that every single student has what they need to be successful in life, you have to attend to these things that distract students from being successful in the classroom. What about the parent who walks in, or the mom and dad who sits in front of you who says, I'm enrolling my child in your school. My child is in the 12th grade.
Yeah.
My child maybe can read at a 6th grade level.
Right.
We need another level of support.
Yeah.
So if the goal is to make sure that every single kid has what they need to be successful, you have to attend to that. And those are the things that distract or make it difficult to make sure that kids will be successful after they graduate. While attending to that, yes, you have a $9 or $10 million budget that you're responsible for.
Which is often not enough even. You have to stretch that budget.
Absolutely. So I will have to go out and identify ways to bring more resources into the building to attend to all the needs. So when you have folks like you who are so generous to come in and just be helpful to students, so we're so thankful for people like you who are willing to be helpful to schools and the students in them.
No, I'm thankful to people like you because you are doing the heavy lifting. It's one thing to write a check, and I've been blessed to be able to do that by just getting good results in cases. But I'm just blown away by what you do on a day-to-day basis and what you have to deal with. I mean, now I'm hearing you also have to be a marketer and get out there and get sources of revenue to come in, and just it's not only you, the teachers as well. I have a soft corner because my mom's a kindergarten teacher, and so I knew the challenges she dealt with. But that was way back then, and even now, society's become so much more complicated. There's so many more sociological issues. It's amazing to me that I just think this profession of teaching is just so underappreciated and underfunded. But anyways, with that, we're going to take a break right now, and we're going to come back and talk about some really interesting topics. I want to hear more about your observations of what's wrong and what can be fixed and how we can go about doing it and how we can all be involved.
Absolutely.
Right now, we're going to take a little segment break, which we call Paul Padda for the People, where I throw out some pointers to help folks in terms of dealing with various legal issues. Today's topic is going to concern social media. Paul Padda for the People. Hi folks, Paul Padda for the People with another helpful tip. Have you heard the adage, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law? Well, guess what? That applies in personal injury claims, not just in court of criminal law. If you've been injured in a car accident, be very careful what you post to social media because an insurance company is going to look at that and use it against you to undermine your claims. How many times have we looked at social media and seen people posting things that we know are not necessarily accurate or 100% correct? Well, anything you post on social media can be misleading and be misconstrued to say, oh, this person's not really injured. So don't put a picture of yourself bungee jumping or doing the zip line at Fremont Street if you've been injured, because an insurance company is going to use it against you. That's one of the most important things I can tell you. Be careful what you post to social media if you've been in an accident. This is Paul Padda for the People with another helpful tip. All right, folks, Paul Padda with the Paul Padda Podcast. We're back with our very esteemed guest, Dr. Zachary Robbins, the principal of Cheyenne High School. We just had a little tip here on social media. So we were talking during the break, and you talked about the fact that gangs now are recruiting through social media. Tell us a little bit more about that.
It is so important, and I'm so happy to hear you and see you giving tips to the public about social media and making sure that folks are aware of the impacts of social media. So at Cheyenne High School, one of the things that we did was bring in the Metro Police Department, actually the North Las Vegas Police Department, specifically to educate parents about social media and the impacts of social media on children.
Yeah.
Because, oftentimes parents are monitoring children's social media, but children are using social media and they might be talking in this sort of code.
Yeah.
Well, some of that code might be the way that gang members are communicating very specific things to each other. And there are things that perhaps folks wouldn't know if North Las Vegas Police didn't come in and explain that this is what is happening.
Right.
So also, just basic things like maybe creating a fake profile and try to friend your child, just in case your child has a social media presence that you don't know about. Little things that parents can do just to monitor their children's social media presence. Because there are things that gang members may be doing that parents need to know so that they can more actively supervise their children when they're not with them.
Well, that's great information. And in our society today, we have a lot of single parents. Like you have the single mom who's trying to raise her kids, pay the bills, working late nights. This is a city where we have a lot of 24/7 type shifts. People work in the casinos at night. They may not even know what their kids are involved in. And now you've got people on the internet through like some of these social media websites recruiting their kids or being bad influences. And so that's actually really helpful information, and that's very valuable.
Absolutely, and these are good parents.
Yeah.
Good people working hard, just trying to make ends meet. But But the world is moving so fast,
yeah.
and social media has gotten so advanced, and kids are so sophisticated. So if we don't teach parents how to adjust to the times, folks won't know.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do at Cheyenne High School is try to create programs so that we can help parents acclimate to these changing times.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Well, we have a question. I know someone wrote in a question and they wanted to know, for people who are, or kids who are homeless, what type of resources are out there?
So through the school district, we have something called Title I Hope. And through Title I Hope, a school counselor can connect with the Title I Hope services through the school district to make sure that students have food and other resources so that they're not hungry, so that they can have clothes, so they can just have basic resources that detract from their ability to be successful in a classroom. Also, most principals will have some sort of a connection with their local legislators. So I know that our legislator that we connect with a lot is Assemblywoman Dina Neal. So we will call her if we really hit a situation where we can't tap out the resources through Title I Hope. Like we had a situation this year where we had a student whose parents left, was living with a family member. The family member fell on hard times. The student then the student was 18, so the student was forced to move into a shelter with adults.
Wow.
That was not the appropriate placement for this young man.
Exactly.
Because in that shelter with adults, he was staying with adults with very adult issues. This was not the appropriate place for this kid, but through all the assistance of our local legislators, we were able to get this kid in a better situation, and now he is living in the dorms at UNLV.
So if someone were to type in Google, let's say, what would they type in? Title I Hope?
Title I Hope.
Title I Hope, Nevada or Las Vegas?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So that would be actually really good information that they can tap into to help get those resources to someone that might be in that situation.
Absolutely. And just connecting with your student's guidance counselor. The school counselors in the Clark County School District are excellent.
Yeah.
Once they know a student is in need, they're going to pull out all the stops to make sure that student has what they need to be successful.
Right.
And at Cheyenne High School, our teachers, once they identify a student has a need, everyone jumps to make sure that kid is okay.
Yeah. And
usually they come to me, it's like automatic at this point, and they come to me when the case is really tough.
Right.
And then I pull out all the stops and go to an additional set of resources that maybe they don't have easy access to. Like right now, one of the things I want to do is somehow be able to get a laundromat or get a way to wash kids' clothes in the school. And it's not my idea. I'm not going to take credit for it because I've looked online and I've seen other principals in other states actually have a place to wash kids' clothes, because I've had students who don't want to come to school because they have no way of washing their clothes. In fact, one of the things I had to get for this one kid is washing powder.
That's amazing.
Because they didn't have money for washing powder. They didn't want to come to school.
And this is the richest country in the world. That's crazy. Yeah. We have so much to fix. Well, on that note, I wanted to just kind of segue into what are your observations as far as the biggest challenges facing the education system in Nevada? What can parents, people who are not parents like me, but who are citizens who are interested in improving our educational system, because though I don't have any children, I believe the children obviously are the future. And if we invest in kids, we're investing in the future, it's the betterment of society, all of that great stuff. What can folks do to get more involved and make it better? But first I want to hear, what are your observations as far as what are the biggest challenges facing education?
I think that right now, identifying folks to go into the teaching profession. So right now, teaching is such a noble profession, we have to treat it as such.
Right.
So pay folks. And I'm so happy that right now there has been legislation that's gonna lead to paying teachers more. Yeah. Because it's hard to ask people to choose teaching as a profession if teachers aren't getting paid.
Of course.
I do understand that there has to be an accountability piece with that too, because people don't want to spend the money if they don't feel like they're getting their money's worth.
Right.
I agree with that. So doing things to attract more teachers into the profession, number one. Number two, I believe that we all have to work together to ensure that schools are safe, and I'm so happy that there has been legislation passed for safety, because I do believe that we need to improve the camera systems in all schools, just so that we can monitor schools and the areas around schools to make sure that kids are safe, because you're going to send your kids to schools. You need to make sure that we're able to monitor. That's very, very important. I also believe that folks who don't have children who want to support schools, I think it's as simple as making sure that you meet the principal at your local school. It seems so simple, but it's so important. Just meet the principal and ask to speak with the principal, and ask the principal a simple question: what is it that you need? Because those needs will be different depending on the school.
Well, we have so many retirees in Las Vegas, right? I mean, this is one of the, because of our tax structure in the state, the warm weather, there's a lot of folks who from all over the country, highly qualified people who come here and retire. Can they get more involved?
Absolutely.
So if they want to go to the local school and say, hey, I'd like to be a volunteer, I want to be a volunteer teacher, I want to do stuff to help the school, are those opportunities there available for them? Those
opportunities exist. I know Clark County School District is also cognizant of who's going to be around our children. So if you are going, if a citizen is going to be around our children on a regular basis, there is a process through the Clark County School District that they must go through, so we can vet the volunteer to make sure that the volunteer is safe to be around our children, which keeps everyone safe.
Of course, you have to balance that.
Exactly. I have 2 children in the Clark County School District. If they're going to have a volunteer in their class,
you want to know who it is.
I want to know that they're okay. But if a person is going to volunteer 2, maybe 3 times in a school year, they don't have to go through as rigorous of a process.
I see.
So just making sure that the citizen goes to the school, introduces themselves to the principal, lets the principal know that, yes, I would like to be involved. The principal will find a way to plug that person in. So that's number one. Number two, if it's not in-kind services and just volunteering and people want to donate, every little bit helps. And I don't think that people understand that $5, that $10, that $15, that might be a bottle of hand sanitizer, that might be Kleenex, that might be pencils, that might be pens. Everything helps. It might be just, and if it is in kind, maybe it's a presence, maybe it's just standing on a corner, just keeping an eye out with your cell phone, ready to call if something doesn't seem right. All of those things in the aggregate helps.
That's amazing. So what can the average person do if they let's say they watch this podcast and they say, okay, you know what, I want to do something right now. What can they do?
Right now, I would say call the school. Now, a lot of people, the principals are like, I'm still working. A lot of principals are still, like today I was at my school preparing our budget. I interviewed a teacher today. So a lot of us are still working right now. So you can literally go up to the school or call the school to make an appointment to see the principal.
Don't just show up because they don't want the cops showing up. Like, who is this person? Crazy person. Crazy Paul Padda's recommending people just show up to people's schools. No, that's not good.
And even if that's the case, let's say you're just driving by. And if the principal's not there, usually there's going to be the administrative secretary there. Just set an appointment.
That's
just
great.
Set an appointment. And I believe that that's the first step. Just communicate. Communicating that there's an interest will go a very, very long way.
That's true. That is true. So, one thing I've noticed is I've come across some younger teachers, and one young man who's got an impressive background. He's a school teacher here in Clark County, and he was telling me about the level of student debt that he's got from his master's program. I was overwhelmed by it. I'm like, how are you ever going to pay that off on a teacher's salary? And he's very well credentialed. And I thought, what a shame. It's like you can make money as a physician or a lawyer, but I think we undervalue how many smart people go into the teaching profession, and it's a sacrifice, and they make so much less money. One of the things I thought about is that Clark County, and I think a lot of government or counties should think about the idea of subsidizing and helping to pay off some of the student debt. You'd probably attract much better teachers even. What do you think of that idea?
I think that anything that will allow folks to forgive the debt they've incurred, to do a service to their city, to their state, to their country by encouraging folks to go into the nonprofit sector like teaching, would be beneficial. So I think of programs like the Teacher Next Door program, which gives some sort of a subsidy that helps people buy homes. That works. Anything. So there are programs that allow teachers that will forgive a certain percentage of debt for teachers, but for some people they'll say, well, I went to X school, I have this much debt. It's not, while I'm thankful, it's not going to put a dent in the debt that I've incurred.
Before I buy a house, I need to get rid of all this other debt I have, which is going to basically hang over my head for the rest of my life. I know with millennials, that's a big issue. I mean, we see that on the campaign trail now. Politicians are starting to talk about it, that you and I, when we came out, I mean, it's different, but it wasn't actually that long ago. But nowadays, I think for a lot of young people graduating from college,
it costs more.
Oh my goodness,
it costs more.
Crazy. I don't know how people do it, and it really is scary.
Like I remember in Washington D.C., one of my colleagues talked about the Teacher Next Door program, and then there were the cousins of those programs, the fireman next door, the police officer next door. I remember looking at programs that people in all the states don't have these programs. But I do remember housing programs, and I'm thinking that's a very aggressive way to get teachers to come to certain districts. So it's not just state programs, there are specific districts who are doing these sorts of things just to get people in the door. But that takes will, and it takes resources, and every single district or city or state doesn't have those kinds of resources.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. Well, anyways, I think we could be here for another 3 hours. You are a fascinating guest. I'm so glad you came on. I definitely want you back. Hopefully you'll make that commitment to come back to us. I know.
Absolutely.
Oh, that'd be great. We could talk for 3 more hours. There's just so much to cover. But thank you so much, Dr. Robbins, for taking time out of your day to come be part of this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, this is Paul Padda for the Paul Padda Podcast. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay safe. We'll see you then.